So on to the next section now. We're going to talk about raw materials with Kate Goldsworthy, your favourite subject, and you've put together an amazing report by looking through all the entries and looking actually worldwide at what's been happening in raw materials this year.
Yeah, we're sort of zooming in now, aren't we? We've looked at the whole system with that interview, and now we're sort of really focusing in on the part of the circular economy that I find so exciting, which is linking up our waste streams, back around to raw materials. And of course, the raw materials are not raw in a circular economy. They've got past lives. So I think for the next few minutes for this film, we're going to explore all of the progress reports from our signatories, all the amazing work that's gone on in this area, not just in materials, but also sorting technology, fantastic recovery technology, and then seeing a bit more from a couple of our key signatories who've made some really fantastic films about big news this year in their world.
Great. Well, let's see that film then.
I think the past year our two biggest accomplishments have been our collaboration with Södra. We have signed a collaboration with the Swedish pulp and wood specialist Södra to jointly develop a new technology for recycling textile waste and scale it up until 2025 to 25,000 tons. That's for us, it's a major milestone. And the second thing I would highlight is that we've converted our Refibra recycling fiber to carbon neutral. So the fiber now is not only using pre and post consumer waste, it's also 100% carbon neutral. And for us, that was a great step forward. I think the biggest challenges right now are we still kind of lack, of course, the scale and technology in some parts. But also from an industry perspective, the biggest one I think is synthetics. Now, blends with synthetics are a major challenge now for recycling. What we like is cotton and cellulosic fibers, but what's really difficult is blends with, for example, polyester. And the other big challenge is still the lack of enough incentives and in part also regulation to really get recycling and circularity going. So that's something we're missing at this point. I would actually ask for two things. One is to avoid synthetics wherever possible, and really because it makes recycling almost impossible at this point. And the second thing I would ask for is that we jointly ask for incentives and regulation to really achieve the scale, the economies of scale we need to make this technology also more affordable. So those will be the two things.
पूरा नाम मेरा मोहम्मद उस्मान है। मैं डिस्ट्रिक्ट में 2013 में पहली तारीख से भर्ती हूँ। लगा हूँ अपनी ईमानदारी से। सुबह आता हूँ, 40-50 आदमी हैं, वो भी अपने बच्चों जैसे रखे हैं। भाई काम करो, काम से बगैर नहीं छोड़ूंगा। अभी मैं यहाँ लगा हूँ मेंटेनेंस में, और ये लूमों का मेंटेनेंस करता हूँ और इसमें देखता हूँ जो भी फॉल्ट माल्ट है, जो सामान निकालना है, स्पेयर पार्ट जो लगाना है, वो मैं अपने हिसाब से करता हूँ। शिटल दुनिया की जो लूम है ना, इसका कपड़ा पहनो आपको बॉडी को सुकून मिलेगा, और ये बड़ा मजबूत कपड़ा बना रही है। ये काम जो है ना, इसमें मैं आपको एक दिल की बात बताऊं, मुझे बड़ा फख्र है। जब इसको मैं करता हूँ ना, तो जैसा बंदा अपने बच्चों के साथ नहीं खेलता है, कोई जूते पहनाते है, कोई कपड़े पहनाते है तो इतना मोहब्बत है मेरा इसके साथ। जदीद दौर आ गया, हाई पावर मशीनें आ गई, ज़्यादा प्रोडक्शन वाली। इसका काम जो है ये इलेक्ट्रॉनिक है। हम अपने काम में मस्त है, वो अपने काम में लगा हुआ है पर मैं खुश हूँ। अल्लाह गवाह है, मैं खुश हूँ और दुआ करते हैं, या अल्लाह इसको सदा चला।
How fantastic to see the combined progress of lensing and roots in looms in those films. Just brilliant examples of clean, green technology moving towards significant scale up with recycled materials and even carbon neutrality. Also, the capacity for authentic and traditional companies like Roots to embrace these innovative practices, just incredible. So, raw materials. In a circular economy, these are really far from raw. They've already been around the block at least once, we hope, and effectively join up the end of one material life and the start of another, reaching back into the circular value chain to the point of waste creation, and including sorters, collectors, tech companies, all working closely together. The World Circular Textiles Day vision is for renewable, recyclable, and non-toxic materials used efficiently and kept in continual circulation. And a lot has happened this year to get us closer to that reality. So, to uncover some of those progress stories, we asked our partners, what have your biggest accomplishments been in evolving towards 100% circularity over the past year? It was great to see so many partnerships between signatories being mentioned, a kind of circular trail of activity, lots of collaboration. And we've seen some definite themes emerging from this circular ecology. The first thing to really note is that the technology itself is progressing at pace. So many of our signatory companies have reported significant progress over the last 12 months. Leaders in the tech space have been really driving it forward, not least Lensing, Ambercycle, Infinited Fibre and RenewCell, with Warn again working towards their next key milestone, a demonstration plant for their polymer recycling technology. Recover have already begun the scaling up of their technology to include both pre- and post-consumer waste inputs, aiming to include post-consumer waste as more than 40% of their input by 2025. This would mean recycling around 425 million garments and increasing its production to 200,000 metric tons of recycled cotton per year. The industry is waiting for scaling up of all of these technology solutions for the real step change to be possible. The brands are continuing and communicating ambitious goals on recycled materials moving forward. They're getting ready for the technology to make this possible. H&M have pledged 30% of their total materials will be from recycled sources by 2025. Caring published their circularity ambition with strong commitments such as zero microfiber leakage by 2030 and zero unsold product destruction. The increase of recycled content on current lines is evident too across the high street and not at the expense of quality. For example, Primark and Recover are partnering to create a sustainable fashion at affordable prices under the Primark Care label. DeBella has developed a 65% recycled content textile with the same longevity as traditional hospitality textiles. H&M has achieved over 64% recycled or other more sustainably sourced materials in 2020, up considerably from 2019 figures. And a big highlight for sports brand ASICS in 21 was to produce official sportswear for the Japan team athletes, featuring high-performance fabrics made of recycled clothes donated from people across Japan for the team. So materials from the highest quality with locally focused material inputs. Just fantastic. Many of our signatories have reported progress with circular design being embedded in their practices. Great for us at the Centre for Circular Design to see that. H&M's circular product development guidelines are a great example of this drive to empower their teams in creating more circular products enabled right from the drawing board. Reformation launched a denim that focuses on durability, material health, recyclability and traceability, and is also made to be circulated, not wasted. Their Fibre Trace collection features first-of-a-kind fibre traceability technology that embeds luminescent pigments into the fabrics, showing you the whole life cycle of your jeans. So not just designing circularity, but also communicating transparently the process and decision points. Here we know that with very many brands are working in this way, it's a process of constant improvement. Partners are joining up to maximise the circularity potential. It was so exciting to see a very high level of collaboration across the value chain, in particular with brands working closely with recyclers to define ways to better prepare materials for recycling at end of life, and setting up post-consumer collection facilities as part of their in-store experience. Finisterre launched their Lived and Loved trade-in this summer, partnering with Reskinned and allowing customers to get credit back on trading in their unworn clothes. What cannot be resold is then sorted for textile upcycling and eventual fibre-to-fibre recycling. The ambition to maximise product lifespan, enable multiple ownership, and ultimately keep every material in circulation. Beyond Retro are working with RenewCell and now are on track to supply 18,000 metric tonnes of post-consumer denim by May next year to be recycled into circulose. Reformation have partnered with Loopedworks to create a first-of-its-kind take-back programme, which plans to launch in October next year. H&M also focused on reuse as part of their holistic circularity proposition, increasing focus on resale, with the startup Selfie now available in over 20 markets. Worn Again have been working with industry initiatives and working groups to overcome key market barriers to pave the way for textile-to-textile recycling, including accelerating circularity, British Fashion Council's Circular Fashion Ecosystem, and Reverse Resources Circular Fashion Partnership, all initiatives that bring the circular value chain together to map and accelerate progress. And lastly, collection and sorting systems are really beginning to modernise with innovative technology and, importantly, a local perspective. Debella have set up reverse logistics for collecting and distributing post-consumer laundry textiles to different initiatives such as Sodra and Reuse Remade. More brands are leveraging Aeon's platform to digitise and connect products, bringing every garment online with a digital ID to ensure products and materials can be managed through to the point of recovery. Recover is in the process of setting up recycling hubs in Bangladesh and Vietnam, based strategically close to textile waste and manufacturing industries to reduce the carbon impact of transport. And collectors such as the Salvation Army and Beyond Retro in the UK have strengthened their textiles collections and reprocessing businesses, despite the challenges of the past year, keeping all clothing bank collections running throughout the lockdowns. And in January this year, the Salvation Army opened a modern purpose-built processing centre in the UK with state-of-the-art materials handling equipment and a new automated advanced fibre sorting line. This innovation, part funded by the UK government, will enable accurate sorting and grading of non-wearable clothing and textiles by fibre type, fibre blend and colour. This is another real step change in the industry. So next year's material challenges, what will we be talking about in World Circular Textiles Day 2022? When we asked our partners to reflect on their biggest challenges for this year ahead, whilst there are many, it's really uplifting to see that many are about continuing the success of the last 12 months and amplifying the speed of progress. More technology scaling up, almost every brand mentioned the need for the technology to scale as soon as possible, and needing more infrastructure and services to facilitate take-back as well as recycling at scale. More take-up of high-quality recycled materials, It's all about releasing the tension between product design, aesthetic and performance, customer preference and availability of textiles created with circular solutions in mind for all levels of the market. More circularity designed in at the start, in particular tackling the complexity of textiles that involve so many different materials and bonded constructions, such as footwear and outerwear. We need to focus on the blended materials if we're to achieve 100% circularity, as well as recovery of bio-based materials into high quality fabrics that really perform. More joining up of circular stakeholders, including a more regionalised infrastructure to support scalable and truly circular textiles globally with resilient and local systems, and more waste textiles saved from landfill. This really is the fundamental outcome everyone's working towards, be that through product longevity, reuse, through to fibre recovery. As we see the level of activity not only from our signatories, but also the broader community represented through our global mapping project, I think we can really feel excited about the next year and the progress we will undoubtedly see in 2022.
Brilliant film. Absolutely loved that. Kate, you worked really, really hard on trawling through the knowledge hub and globally and all the literature and research that we come into contact with day to day anyway in our work, but to pull those things together to find those stories. And I think that really makes sense. And actually, while the film was playing, you two were talking, as you always are, about just how much can be done in this space, what needs to be done. So why don't we pick up on that? What needs to happen next?
Well, I think, one of the things that struck me in reading all these incredible partner updates is that pretty much everything we're talking about is happening at the moment. We're on a scale from 0 to 2050, but we're on the way. So, as we talked about at the end, every one of those themes is happening, and we just want more of it next year. But I think there was something about the connections between the players, between brands, between recyclers and manufacturers, between, sometimes even between the recycling tech companies themselves, that was really inching progress forward.
Well, and we said last year as well when we launched that we're in phase 1 of circularity, and that's where we have all the puzzle pieces. And actually, they're starting to connect up now, almost even sooner than we could have imagined, which is good because the quicker that happens, the better. So it's really nice to see that happening. And I think that's really what's exciting about what we're doing here is that hopefully by bringing this together and the signatories and everyone involved in this space, by seeing that progress, it really just re-energizes you to kind of take things forward and to keep going.
Yeah, it really strikes me that we're beginning to talk about materials as sort of flows and as systems and just understand them so much more. And we have been saying for a long time it's not as simple as just natural and synthetic, and it's not as simple as biological and technical. Because as soon as you get to clothes, you've got blends, you've got finishes, it's really, really complex. But we are making progress on this knowledge area, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I think the other big shift now is the conversation around designing for circularity is really starting to, it's coming to the fore a bit more. We're seeing, the recommendations for designing for circularity. Well, what does that mean? We need to know what we're designing for. And so those conversations between the different types of recyclers and brands and designers are starting to happen in a way that, is going to bring this space forward going forward.
Well, I think as well, Cindy, you often talk about the fact that at the moment circularity doesn't exist in the way, we're envisaging and hoping for, but that already companies are using better quality recycled materials with what they have and preparing for when full circularity is possible. And I think it's just worth sort of thinking about the variety of recovery technologies we have sort of in the group, and that there are almost as many ways of recycling as there are of making fibres in the first place. So, we've got a lot of work to match up those.
And there's a big communications job to be done as well to explain, what is on the horizon, because I think there's a lot of negativity around recycling. The general, common public don't necessarily know what happens to their clothing once it's done. So, because a lot of this doesn't exist yet, we still have a long way to go to educate and spread awareness so that there's hope for the future, and it's not a cynical, negative outlook when it comes to recycling. We actually realize, we know that each of us are part of that solution, and that we have to learn about how textiles are collected. We have to find different ways of collecting them to make sure they go back into the system and they don't, get lost to landfill and everywhere else where they end up now.
There was an interesting question that came in, I think, through the chat about regionalised infrastructure, and I mean that's something, when we talk about the need for local systems, is so interesting with recycling, because waste is created and can be recovered within a local and regionalised structure. It becomes, just makes sense.
And it's essential, isn't it? Because it's Walter Stahl that says if you're going to have, recycling and a sharing economy, it's going to all have to be done at local and regional level, because the travelling, the shipping just does not make sense at all with the goods and the flows. So this is what's exciting, because and I think people are really beginning to understand that relates to urban regeneration, to development, to politics, to actually how people and cultures can now emerge with these connected systems that we need the flows to happen. We're not importing everything across continents anymore. We're making and recirculating. This is the vision. This is what we're working towards, and we're now testing to see whether that's viable, where it's beneficial, where it works, where it doesn't work, right? That's the phase we're in.
Yeah, and the more examples where we see this happening, the more it's going to inspire others, the more it can replicate. And that's what I love about the British Fashion Council Institute of Positive Fashion, the blueprint. It's a plan to work, to actually execute, and it brings all the partners together and it shows us. And, that is definitely the phase we're moving into next, and it can only get better. But it feels like it's kind of coming together quicker than maybe we had originally hoped. Maybe execution takes a bit longer, but there definitely is a huge amount of progress.
Good. Great. Well, just to remind you, now we've actually opened the chat on the Zoom. So those joining us today, you can post your questions there and get a little bit of interaction going with our hosts and Adam and Gwen, who are on standby there from the team. And thanks, Kate, for picking up that question. Very savvy. Okay, we're going to move on to the next part now, where we're going to be looking at products and services. So, and for this, Gwen has put together a report. She's been working with the Knowledge Hub, and the Knowledge Hub is based at Circular Economy in Amsterdam. So we're going to see a little bit of what they've been doing this year as well. So over to Phil.